I was blessed to be a part of a startup that started in somebody's garage and ended up going public. And it was an exciting time to be part of that .com boom. And I thought it was really just sort of a commonplace situation, but the reality is not everybody gets a chance to go into a startup that goes public. And then the public startups that go public, not every startup actually ends up getting value that is above what their actual original value was. We went from a public value of $14 to $96 a share when we went public, and so it was an amazing process when we went from starting in the garage, starting over a dry cleaners. It was actually moved from the garage to one location, then moved to a location over dry cleaners. Then after going public, went into a built building that was really amazing. Anyway, but that startup story was amazing. .com boom, .com bust. Left the industry, but learned a lot in that time, and that was in the early 2000s. Since then, still been immersed in startups, still been immersed in the process of doing online optimization, online marketing, and even yesterday went to an event with 100 startups, and it's amazing to me how many don't necessarily understand what it is to get valuation, what it is to build the approach to getting shareholder value, what it is to do your perfect pitch, and just again being a student of a startup. So that's who I am, that's what I'm doing, and that's why we're here.
And he has a lot more to tell you and share with you, because I think he's being very reserved right now because this is our first startup hour, right? But I mean, he has a wealth of knowledge to share with you. And for me, we come from basically, I mean, kind of cut from the same cloth, but I came later in the game, so right after the .com bubble, and maybe around 2007, 2008 is when I started to get serious online, and been doing a lot of marketing, a lot of freelancing, contracting, consulting, the whole gamut, affiliate marketing, everything you can imagine, and it's not what it looks like ever. So long story short, been doing that thing, online marketing, for many, many years, and now just taking all the knowledge that I've learned over the past few years, helping others so that we can, or I can build a brand here. And hey, Ola, thank you for popping in. And also, my passion, my biggest passion right now is opening up the world, technology, especially to places like Guam, where I'm located. Places that are a lot isolated and have a very little opportunity that technology can provide. So that's a little bit about me. And we have a couple of things that we wanted to talk about just a little bit, and we'll welcome a few guests who want to come in and share their story as well. So
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things I know I wanted to kind of touch on is what Andrea just spoke about, and really the idea of technology not being available to everyone and what you can potentially do. I think hackathons is what we talked about a little bit before, offline from here. And the ability for people to even have access to a hackathon, and some people don't even know what a hackathon is. And greetings, Illuminati.
it's Illuminate Me. That's Ola.
Illuminate Me, gotcha.
And if you hear her, you'll. She has a great accent, but she's also a wonderful person, and she is in photography, and she's awesome, very creative.
So greetings, Illuminate Me. She's Illuminate Me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but hackathons, startup weekends, I think it's one of those most amazing things. In comparison to doing a startup, I think startup weekend is probably the closest thing to really going through that process. And many a person doesn't even know what a startup weekend is. I can't say that I'm a super expert about startup weekends, but I've been to a few. I've won a couple, and they're just fun. I'm in startups so much so that the startup weekend sort of takes you back to what it was like to be in that garage, and that's an experience that not everybody actually has. But a startup weekend gives you, in the course of a weekend, that kind of experience, that kind of perspective. And I think that anyone that's in startups or interested in startups should go to a startup weekend. They're across the country. They're probably across the country, but not across the globe, but I know they're across the country.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the same in Guam. There's not that many, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I just believe that there's such a great opportunity. But I wanted to touch quickly on something that you've been saying, and you've been talking about the garage, and That whole aspect, especially when it comes to being online and trying to do it online, is people don't realize we're in garages and in our
Yes.
bedrooms and in our cars,
Yeah.
and it's not all that they say it is, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It isn't. It isn't. It's very interesting because the technology today versus technology, I'm saying it's 1999. People were starting in their garages, but it was a struggle. I mean, you had to know a lot more then in terms of building a server, in terms of building a website. You still had to do it with some of the graphic designers. Today, there's a lot you can do yourself without having all that extra expertise. But we're still, again, I'm in a car. We could be in a garage. We can do the same things that people were doing many years ago and have that same reality of, you're in a startup, you're starting from the ground to accomplish a specific, definite, major purpose. So that's the one thing I think is consistent through and through with the startups, is that they have a thing that they believe in that's beyond themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been studying a lot about the Tao and a lot of mindset things, because I think people get into it. I mean, me personally, I don't know about you. We never talked about this, but people get into this business not knowing that it actually is a business. And when you're not prepared, because I didn't come from a family who had a business like lineage, I came from people who were hard workers. So transforming your mindset to, owning a business, or from working to owning a business, is something that people grow into since they're a child. They learn it from example. And when we jump in, and especially in startups, right? When we jump in, it's completely different. It's no longer this mindset that you were growing up with. It's a whole different thing. And
I agree.
yeah.
And it's interesting to me because I guess two things that sort of come to mind with my experience. Um, I was I was exposed to a few parents who, um, for lack of a better purpose,
Mhm.
had an understanding of what it was to start some businesses. I mean, they weren't necessarily people that had Fortune 500 businesses, but they were at least working with investment clubs and understanding what a DRIP is, a dividend reinvestment plan, and that exposure at a younger age really amounted to me saying, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. My mother was very interesting and kind of inspirational to me because she started her own little investment club, and it was called the Eagles Investment Club, and they had dividend reinvestment plans and had a structure, and they read the Beardstown Ladies, and then got me to read the book The Beardstown Ladies. They read the book Think and Grow Rich. They got me to read the book Think and Grow Rich. They read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Got me to read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. All those things really exposed me to a perspective of what it is to um, do things beyond just, okay, this is my current environment. And those experiences were what shifted me from being in banking, because I wanted to get in banking no matter my business, to getting into startups. And I literally went from one day not having a job, not being in a business, going to a library, learning HTML, and immediately being in a startup. And I've been in that community ever since.
Mm. See, that's very inspiring, because I think it says a lot that you took the experiences from your mother and the people closest to you, and you took advantage of that. And I think that's pretty amazing. To me, it's pretty amazing, because people often like are presented with information and they don't necessarily take advantage of it and use that opportunity to build up, as opposed to stay stuck, you know. Um,
No, I agree. And I think what's interesting to me also is that we do have amazing opportunities. Like yesterday, again, I was at an event in DC that had at least 150 startups. And the challenge with it was that it didn't have probably more than a couple hundred people that came through for the startup period. Most of the people that came through for the event were either friends of the startups or associated with the startups. So, from a true startup perspective, a lot of them were looking for investors or potential new customers. And what they were disappointed in is that it was other startups. And I think the one benefit is that you can then pitch your idea to other startups. And it's not necessarily selling them on it, but just really giving their authentic feedback. If they have a startup and you have a startup and you're both pitching each other your ideas, you can get real feedback to say, okay, this person got it, understood it, liked it, or they're like, okay, that's nice. Well, talk to you later. And if you get that, that's good, nice, talk to you later, you have something that's not resonating with that market, and that's if it is your target market. Most people are trying to have too broad of a spectrum. I think we were talking about yesterday. the People's app idea, which
Mm.
completely failed. And it's very interesting how quickly it failed. It went from like a cool idea to viral power to it just not going.
I mean, I think it was maybe a cool idea, but then when people started to examine the whole aspect of random people, and they try to justify it by saying that if you didn't claim your profile, nothing bad would be reported on the People's app, but they sort of went private after that. They kind of like ghosted on Twitter, and you couldn't find them anymore. They changed their profile to private, and I mean, I think it speaks a lot to the sentiment of the market, like the internet market. You have to understand where you're going into. And like you said, the dichotomy or the structure of that startup conference that you went to with the 150 startups, basically. Um, it's the ratio of investors to startups and understanding the space that you're in. So how you can approach the situation. Is it like spreading the message or getting your message out there? A bunch of entrepreneurs in the same situation and getting good feedback, or are you actually going to present and attract investors and whatnot? So I guess coming with the right perspective is very important too. What am I here? What am I going to gain, right?
So the interesting part for me is that it was because I knew certain startups were there. I mean, all the ones I knew that were there were in a different perspective. They had either investors associated with them, or they had, 1 degree connection to investors.
Mm.
I knew of one specific one that was there, and again, I've worked with them before. Um, they got their seed capital, and I helped them raise another $150,000 with one phone call, and it was a very interesting scenario because they were looking for $30,000 to do something. And I made a phone call. They got connected with the person that had the money. They didn't ask for the money, so I yelled back at them and said, "Why didn't you ask for the money?" So then I've set up a follow-up meeting where they met with them again. But in this case, I gave them a list of things they needed to say and ask, and they did say and ask it. And the person said, "Okay, well, we'll make that happen." And they got $1 million commitment above and beyond the $150,000 that the person put in. So it was very interesting in that experience. But to the event that I went to yesterday, um, what was very interesting to me is, again, there was 150 or so people there that were businesses. I know for a fact that one of them actually had a network of investors himself. I mean, he's already gotten his funding. He actually did crowdfunding to get his. Well, actually, let me back up. He was not a founder of his startup. He
Mm.
acquired his startup. He was like the second or third employee, then acquired it from the other people as a result of having some friends and family funding. And then he went to Indiegogo to get additional funding to buy and expand the company. He went from having 3 people to like 27 people in a startup. So he went to this startup event, not as he was still sitting in the booth, just like everybody else, but he went there to be able to say, "How can I help you?" And I think Andrea and I talked about that the other day. His whole thing was, how can I help you? What is it that you need? What can I do tomorrow to impact your business and grow it from where it is today to where it can ultimately be? And to be honest with you, he's selling sunglasses. And you see him and you think, okay, you're selling sunglasses. How is it you're going to really be able to help me? But again, I know for a fact he's connected with, it's not an Ivy League school, but it's a top tier school and university that he's on staff. He has office hours. He's connected with investors in that area. And specifically, if he made a phone call and got a recommendation, you can meet with an investor tomorrow. That's how authentic he is and how connected to the community he is. And like I said, he was just sitting there in a t-shirt selling sunglasses. And until you had an authentic conversation with him to know that, you wouldn't know that's who he was, that's who he is, and that's how he can help your startup.
Mhm. I mean, I totally get that because, and we're gonna get to choices zones are question in a minute, just right after this. But I totally get that because I come from a very, very tight knit community. And Choices wants to come on, so he's probably gonna ask this question. We come from a very tight knit community, so the idea of some humble appearance and understand. Oh, we're getting a little feedback. Do you hear that? Hi. Okay, go ahead. Well, we're just hi Choices. How are you doing?
How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. Did you have a question for Monty and I? Or?
I want to know how to start up a marketing business. like I want to know how to start up.
I think CK Darby did say it is a broad question, but I think Monty has some advice to give in terms of something he just said recently, which is he acquired funding in capital for another company. And he did sort of give them, I guess, the basic script or what they needed to ask. So maybe you can address that in terms of acquiring.
So the two things that I go back to when it comes to starting, one, if you can find a startup weekend where you are, it's a tremendous asset. And startup weekends happen probably every 3 or 4 months. They have not been as streaming media focused, and we're looking to address that in some of the events that we're going to be hosting going forward. But in addition to that, it's really a matter of friends and family. I mean, that's what most startups actually end up doing. I mean, one of the most amazing examples to me that I know of was Intel. And this is, probably a 40-year-old company. At the end of the day, they started with, leaving a company called Shockley. Shockley was in San Jose or that Silicon Valley area, which didn't exist at the time. They created a company called Fairchild. The two people that are, one of the key founders of Intel were a part of Fairchild. And Robert Noyce, one of the main founders of that company, didn't have the money to start the company. He was, a guy that graduated from MIT, brilliant guy, working a job he loved. He didn't have the money to start a startup. So he called his mom, who called his grandmom to borrow $500 to start the business. So core point, you have to be able to say, let me go to the friends and family to get behind this idea. But you have to have a solid enough idea that it makes sense for people to say, hey, let me put up the money to do the business.
Yeah, I'm like Damon. I think Damon, the one on Shark Tank, FUBU owner, right? He said the same thing happened to him. They're out there doing he had his hustle on and finally got the investments, the order in, and he still needed money to fulfill his orders. So his mom helped him. And it's a struggle from the beginning. It's always the people closest to you. And I've pitched my father and mother, I've stood with the computer in my kitchen and said, here, this is what I'm doing, so and so and so. And they believe in me. And why wouldn't they want me to succeed? So there you go, right? People closest to you and the people that believe in your idea are often the people that you can look to first for help, at least.
It's also funny to me because a lot of people talk about MLMs. I'm not a huge fan of MLMs, with one exception.
I am.
Well,
I
I am.
I think the biggest benefit to me with an MLM perspective is comfortable with the idea of talking to your friends and family about a business. An MLM is to the best extent to me a training ground, like a school is a training ground. You learn how to learn. In MLM, you learn how to talk to people about something that's totally off the wall. And in a way, the MLM says, okay, I want to take you to somebody that's going to tell you more than I know. Well, with your startup, you have to be the visionary. You have to be the person that can communicate the message in a way that allows people to connect with it authentically. But even more so than that, it allows them to say, that's an interesting enough idea that I want to put my money behind, whether it's a customer or an investor. In both cases, you need to be able to articulate the idea in such a way that people say, okay, I got it. Here's my dollar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying about MLM, and me personally, I'm kind of from the Robert Kiyosaki perspective, saying that if you want to start a business, the best place to learn is join a network marketing company, and the wealth of information that you gain from that, even if you don't succeed or whatever, because it's very unlikely that you'll end up in the top 1%. But I mean, I know millionaires in network marketing. And the same strategies they use to attract customers and attract affiliates are a lot of strategies that you use to attract capital, and investors. It's being passionate enough to share your message in a way that people don't see you're trying to sell them something. They see that they're going to gain something from believing in you and putting their assets in your business, basically. Mm-hmm.
But I always like to do the marketing, the marketing for security, but I would like to know how to start up a marketing. I would like to know how to start up a marketing.
A marketing company or a marketing startup?
Yeah.
Um, so besides going to, again, a startup weekend, which again I think is one of the best scenarios that are out there, um, one of the things you could ultimately do, this is sort of an example, coming to these kinds of events, you might get exposed to some of the podcasts. And I'm a huge advocate of podcasts. They have a lot of people that are, essentially walking you through their startup journey. So it's walking with someone that actually has done what you're trying to do, having that kind of mentor, whether they're a direct mentor or a mentor because you're watching their journey. In both cases, it allows you to say, okay, they've taken this step, I can take this step. Internet Business Mastery is sort of a direct mentor that I work with, and they're an awesome group of people. Jason and Jeremy, they both quit their jobs because they were tired of the Monday morning. I guess they called it, I don't know, it was like Monday morning hate, or really Sunday evening, hate, and it was just going into bed Sunday evening and not wanting to wake up Monday morning to go to your job really is a sign that you're doing the wrong thing. Building a startup for them was, hey, let's do a podcast about starting business, a podcast about marketing, a podcast about doing internet business. And the internet is such today that if you wanted to just tell your story, and share your journey, that could become a business. So it really depends on who you're trying to help solve a problem for. If it's, you can be trying to solve problems for other people that want to understand how to start a marketing business, an online marketing business. And if you take them through your journey as you learn and discover the process, that would help others to do the same.
Yeah, like the technology marketing.
Can you repeat that, or can you repeat that so we just make sure we understand exactly what we're addressing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think honestly, I think that at Monty, he touched on a very good point, and that's you need to know who you're serving. If you want to start a marketing company or do marketing for a business, you're going to have to know exactly what it is, who you're serving, what is your message, what is your function. And if you can't articulate that very clearly, like down to the tiniest details, like Monty's about startups, me, I'm about ideas and people strategies. 3 words, you know. So yeah, and technology marketing.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm into technology so much.
So then you have to drill it down even further, because there's a lot of tech out there. There's a lot of tech. There's like automotive tech, there's affiliate marketing, there's software, hardware.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, oh,
So it's really kind of figuring out what the urgent pain is. I mean, the best, and this is, again, I hate to keep going back to startup weekends because I'm not a huge fan of it. I just think it's a very good chance to learn that process. You niche all the way down. If it's technology marketing, it could be technology marketing to small businesses, or it could be technology marketing to students, or it could be technology marketing to businesses that are failing. You want to really define the urgent pain that this technology marketing is going to solve. And when you've really defined that pain, it helps you to then say, okay, well, let me see how much I'm going to charge for this particular product or service, or give it away. But the first thing you have to define is what pain point that people are actually having that this quote unquote technology.
like it doesn't even have to be, and they call it friction. It doesn't have to be this huge problem. Like, for example, Post Planner, back in the days when posting in Facebook groups was all the rage, right? And it was effective. And people wanted to capitalize on that by posting in 100 groups at a time. Post Planner identified that problem and said, hey, pay us $5 and you can access this app and market to 100, as many groups as you want, as many groups as you can have. Automated, Tweetbot, all these things are basically the identification of friction in the market. What problem exists, and how's your service going to solve that problem?
And like what you were saying about the Facebook marketing, Is that like Twitter or Google or what's the other one? Twitter, Facebook, Google.
LinkedIn.
What's the other one?
You got Pinterest. You got LinkedIn. There's a
Instagram, yeah. There's
Yeah.
But before you,
Um,
this is my biggest advice to you, before you decide you want to choose a platform is just a platform. You have to identify what exactly you want to do. There's a unique proposition, and if you have you heard of that? A unique proposition is something unique to you, unique to your service, and that lets you stand out from everyone else because a lot of people are doing social media marketing. A lot of people care about tech and social media. So, what problem are you going to solve specifically?
yeah, like Palestine,
Mm.
for me, that.
So it sounds like you're looking to do somewhat of the streaming media side of things, and that's again we're talking about technology marketing via streaming media. Tremendously hot right now. Periscope went from just being sort of a general startup a few months ago to having a Periscope summit. And in fact, I remember first they had I think it was a Periscott summit out in Scotland, and then Periscope summit happened in New York. So again, it's really streaming media is hot. Streaming media technology is awesome, but it's really within streaming media. What is it that your value proposition is going to be to help further expand that?
Mm.
Like for example, one happening now is perrygirls.com, and the unique aspect of that is that it's about female empowerment, and of course they invite males, to participate, but primarily.
Mm. I know what it means when you're not 40 now. I know what it means. I can't hear anything.
I heard him say I can't hear anything, but I wasn't really sure. Say one more
Yeah,
time.
I can't hear anything. I can hear you, but I
Gotcha.
can't hear her.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, so you did drop out for me for a second too, Andrew, but I hear you now. Like you were saying something about Perry Girls.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Perry Girls is an example of streaming media that honed in on what they wanted to do with it. And basically the founder and the founders, they decided they wanted to empower women to get their voices heard and share their message. And so they used live streaming to do that, and it became this big movement. And um, that's an idea. Oh, I can't hear you now, Monty.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean,
Okay.
Oh,
it was my fault that time. I muted myself. Um, I saw the link on Facebook, but I didn't see an actual website. I'm not sure if they have one. But it's funny because I go back to that same the Perry Girls concept. Like I went to a startup weekend this past 2 weeks ago, and it was all dedicated to women. It was a startup weekend called Flip the Ratio, and the intention was to bring more women into entrepreneurship as well as into coding. And it was an awesome experience. It was amazing because at the startup event I went to yesterday, the winner of that was a doctor who was looking to provide a healthcare system. In any event, they had a booth and a table at this startup weekend at this startup day because of startup weekend.
So I hope that helps you. And I'm sorry, I didn't even get your. Let me see. What's your
Story.
first name, Choices? I'm just calling you Choices, but what's your first name?
no.
Can you type it in just to make sure I get it right? Hey Troy, anybody want to hop on and ask Monty and I any questions or?
I mean, it's like the Microsoft marketing.
Oh, calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the Microsoft marketing or Apple marketing. They do marketing like Apple, Microsoft, Google. or what's the other one? Google, Microsoft, Apple, and IMEA, whatever that is. IMEM, IBM, data marketing, Apple.
Like big data analytics. So really taking the data marketing. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Monty.
My exposure to the data marketing is really, again, it's kind of old school. We back in the day before Google was Google, we worked with a company that was called DoubleClick, and DoubleClick was an awesome aggregator of data, and they were ones who would essentially analyze your traffic patterns and how you would engage the platform, and then they would then deliver more content based on that whole delivery model. Google came around, they got a bunch of money, they went public and what have you, and they acquired DoubleClick. And what they essentially bought within buying DoubleClick was Dart, and they're still using that technology today. And again, this is technology from pretty much 20 years ago, but it was so far advanced in that data analytics solutions that it helped with this whole AdWords process. And in terms of the history, it had the history of people's interactions and engagements for the last 15, 20 years. And again, Google didn't change the name. They didn't change anything. They just said, hey, here's Dart. And for those who didn't know the code or the back-end infrastructure behind it, it's brand new. But it is still to this day the same company that Google acquired from all that time before.
I'm asking your question about Google. I thought Google was Yahoo. I thought Yahoo bought Google.
Yeah. So Google went public, and they're totally, like, Yahoo is totally separate from Google, which is totally separate from Bing. Bing and Yahoo are sort of working together to be a competitor to some degree of what Google's doing. Google has now split off to do, well, the company is called Alphabet, and they have Google as sort of a side company, and they have Google Ventures, which is a side company. They have a bunch of other components to Google that are now split off into various pieces. But no, Yahoo and Google are totally separate.
What, even like Microsoft?
Microsoft did acquire Bing, or really created Bing. So it in and of itself is a separate company. But even with Microsoft and Bing, they essentially are building a platform that's the opposite of Google. For instance, with Bing, you can do multi-level marketing in AdWords, whereas Google has a little bit more challenge when it comes to AdWords. It's not AdWords with Bing, but it's that same concept of doing advertising.
Right.
So here's what we're gonna do, calendar. We're gonna, I guess, we're gonna open it up to more questions, and if you have any more further questions, you can follow us on Twitter and send us DMs, and maybe we can help you further. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you I hope we helped a little bit to the best of our ability, because that's our goal right now.
Absolutely.
So here's my challenge for you. Why don't you come up with a few ideas, write it down, and then maybe, next week or tomorrow or the day after when we come back on here, let us know what you decided or what ideas you came up with, and then we can go from there. So try to be as detailed as possible, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about Google, because you just brought Google up, and I think I know we wanted to talk about what Google does, and I think this is a very important consideration, right? If you want to start up a company, do you necessarily have to have the technology to do it, the product to do it, or is the vision more important before the product emerges?
To me, I guess it really goes back to if you're doing a lean process or if you're just doing a passion project. I was talking to a young couple. It wasn't a couple. It was like a mother and their child the other day, and they were looking to start their business. In this case, the mother was talking more for the child, and the child was probably 20 something. But the mother was talking more for the child, and they were saying, my child has a vision, and they're looking to change the world. And I thought that was awesome. But I was like, okay, so have you made any sales yet? They hadn't made any sales. But they spent 6 or 7 months writing a business plan, which is cool. But the challenge with some of the business plans is we're looking at age data as opposed to really going out there and doing market validation. And to me, back to the whole purpose, you really have to do the market validation to understand, again, back to what we said before, what niche are you serving? What problem are you solving? And are people really interested in what it is you have to offer? One of the biggest challenges people do is they build in a vacuum for a market that may or may not be interested in what their product or service is. And that's a big risk because you can be building something that nobody wants and then spend all that time, money, and effort, and it's not something that people actually are interested in, versus being lean with the approach, coming up with an approach that makes you have at least a minimum viable product that you can put out there to the market. And then after you put it out to the market, you have the market say, hey, I'm interested in this. I'd put up my dollar for that. And once you understand that problem, you don't have to be the expert at it, but just understand the problem well enough that you can talk to it eloquently, people are going to be engaged with you. And that could be your ambassadors. That could be your first customers, but also your ambassadors that say, hey, let me tell others about your product or service. And this is how your product or service solved my problem. It could probably solve the same problem for you.
So essentially, you want to test the market before you jump in with both feet, basically. You want to make sure there's a place for it.
Yes. Because, I mean, then you work to the problem, and I guess the whole concept is Seth Godin versus Yahoo. And, Seth Godin went out there and he built a basic database and had all the information as much as he could compile together. And then Yahoo went out and built that directory and just gave it away for free. And as a whole, Seth Godin had, an exceptional book and a great T-shirt. But I think his story is that he had $1 billion T-shirt because as he built that T-shirt and that company, Yahoo built a business that went public. And now Seth is a guru. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I hate to say guru, but he's a brilliant guy when it comes to the whole process. But it was because he learned on that challenge with, hey, I'm building the same thing Yahoo did, but I didn't put it out there.
So this is like an emotional versus logical argument, basically. I think. I mean, that's what I'm getting from your explanation. It's very, am I passion driven, right? And do I want to do things my way for my specific passion, or do I want to do things for a larger purpose, a greater purpose? Do I want to serve people in a different, a holistic type way, as opposed to my way, even if no one cares?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, to test your product or test the market and whether your product actually does service, because there's a lot of talk. I mean, all the books I've read and all the experiences I've had in the past says that visionaries are not necessarily the most important in terms of running a profitable business. If you're a visionary but the market is not ready for you, then what happens?
I mean, you're talking about Nikola Tesla. I mean, the reality of it is we would not, if Tesla would have had his way today, we wouldn't be paying for electricity, period.
Mm-hmm.
His approach to it was an amazing concept, but at the same time, the market wasn't quite ready for it. But then, he had to deal with GE to some degree, and how they engaged.
Harley says hi.
Howdy.
So, do you think we covered everything we thought we would cover? Unless anyone has questions. I mean,
yeah, open to any questions. Yeah, but I think we did cover a lot, and ideally we'll have probably an earlier time. But I guess I'm open to the time because I was on a few good podcasts, a few good blabs this morning. I know one of them was Saul's blab, which I thought was very interesting. And I mentioned Charlene had her blab this morning as well. And the one I saw this morning was really talking about the marketing side of things. And it was speaking to how they made, I think you might have gotten onto it at the end. They had a 40% conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was amazing. It was like 40% conversion rate. How did you get 40% conversion?
I know. That's why I went on there. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It spoke to that somewhat. UFC. Yeah, I'm a UFC fan. I actually I'm not his weight class, but I am a UFC fan. Um, I actually saw it and thought, okay, they're going to talk a lot about the conversions. And in the end, they did talk about it. Were you there when she talked about it at the end? What
I
happened?
I heard her talking about she did the ugly cry, and that's the I guess the part I caught. So
What she ended up talking about was because again, for me, the whole time I was like, I'm paying attention, but the main thing I want to know is how did you get 40% conversion? What was the situation? So what happened was she went to an event to have a talk, and it was about 100 people in the audience. And in this talk, she always focuses her talks on one person. It's like really connecting with them authentically, talking about their real story and helping them in a way that translated to everyone. But it was like, this is the person I'm looking to solve a problem for. I want to reach you authentically, your urgent pain. And she said she gave the talk, and reaching out to that one person, she was able to reach out to 40 of them. And 40 of them came up to her afterwards and said, you've changed my life. I'm going to do things totally differently because of this talk. And that's how she's always done her speeches since then. And that was an amazing point because her whole concept of every single day is, I want to help one person. I want to reach one person. I want to help that one person, regardless of everything else that goes on today. I want to reach somebody authentically with my message to impact them in a positive way. And she translated that into the speech in front of 100 people. That translated into getting to 100 people as a talk, but the 40 converted to be clients and customers. So it was an amazing platform.
wow. And see, I think this is the thing that I struggle with a lot too, because I'm very guarded in terms of personally telling you my life or my story or whatnot. I'm very logical and I approach things in that way and analytical, but I'm less emotional when it comes to business. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you feel the same way because we jive very well. I mean, in a private conversation, one-on-one, I mean, I'll tell you my life story and I'll listen to you and connect with you, but openly, it's very awkward for me to tell you how my life went from like basically the bottom and I fought my way up. You know what I mean? So it'd be very difficult to share the details of that.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it's funny because as much as I'm introverted, and again, I've probably said to you, my one-on-one conversations are totally different than if I'm talking to one on 10 or one on 100 or one on 1,000. And a lot of it's been based off of experiences when I was a kid. And I may have shared this story with you or not, but I was in college doing business plans for startups, and they had an interesting challenge for me because this one day I was kind of off the clock, but they asked me to rally up all these businesses we wrote business plans for. And at that day, I wasn't dressed right. I wasn't prepared for it, but I did it anyway. And that before that, I was afraid to talk in front of people. But in this case, I was in shorts and a T-shirt telling people in suits and ties, get in your seats. And then I had to do a 5-minute intro for the person who was going to actually speak. Got rid of all my fear. So I felt like I could talk to anybody about anything in front of them if I can get up here in front of shorts and a T-shirt and get people to actually listen.
I remember that story, and I was telling you that introverted people, they are. I mean, I'm the same way. Like, if I know what I'm talking about and I get in front of like a huge crowd, I may be shy and in like my little bubble all day, but as soon as I get up and I know what I'm talking about, then it's like it just flows. You know what I mean? Off my skin, out of my mouth. It's very simple. But when I don't know what I'm talking about, you know, right. You can tell because I have this
Yeah, you can't have the I don't knows and the ums and I'm not ready to answer that question. It's almost like we're not the politicians that really have a better, more polished non-answer answer. So.
And it's funny because I wanted to be a politician when I was younger.
So did I. I wanted to actually be a senator when I was a kid. I grew up around senators, so it was a different experience. The only reason I wanted to be a senator wasn't really for the job; it was for the job security because they had 6 years. No other politician had 6 years. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a cool job. But as I got older, I was like, it's not of interest to me at all.
Yeah, you're preaching. I grew up around a family of senators and a bunch of other stuff, government officials, things like that. And you're preaching to the choir. Yeah. As soon as I knew what politics was, I said, oh, no.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel sorry for those who get into it, but it's their choice. I guess we need a government for something.
Oh, yeah, it's politicians are is like the biggest marketing scheme in the world, and I don't want to go too in depth with that,
But,
but it is. And when you realize it, you would just be happy to be a person who can think for themselves and act for themselves
but
and do what you love, regardless of what people, the polls say.
yeah. And that's why I like the thinking grow rich concept. It really sort of helped me to change a lot of stuff, and it was something that I reread on a regular basis because it sort of empowers you to really become more specific with your purpose. And I think again with the startup idea in mind, a lot of startups are generalists as opposed to having a specific purpose to solve, a specific niche to reach. And until you have that specificity with your purpose, you're just kind of broadly trying to solve a problem as opposed to specifically going in and saying this is the problem I solve. I kind of go back to Intel because the story of Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore. I mean, many people know about Gordon Moore and the laws that Gordon Moore, Gordon Moore's laws, the technology advances every 2 years to double in terms of their capacity. I always say that he was Batman. I mean, he was Robin to Robert Noyce's Batman. Bill Gates. We're talking Steve Jobs. All these guys wanted to be Robert Noyce. He was the guy that was doing amazing things, and that was in defining and building Intel. And Intel to this day is still the company that is dominating their market. 80% of the share of all computers that are just straight computers, not mobile, but the computers, they still have chips in most of those computers. And I think Gerald says hi to you, Andrew. It's an amazing point to me that they look to say, hey, here's a problem. These microchips that people are building, we can do better. We can ionize the silicon. And as a result of ionizing that silicon, they built a system that was just unparalleled and to the point where nobody else could compete. Yet and still, they helped to create their competition. I think we talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
Intel helped create AMD in its fundamental way. They helped them to solve it. People from AMD didn't know what they were doing. They called up people from someone and said, hey, how do you do this? They said, oh, why don't you just call Intel? They called Intel. Intel gave them a solution. They created the company. And now they own most of the chip market when it comes to cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Created their competition. And so it's an amazing, and that's Silicon Valley to a major degree. That's how they actually operate as a part of the process. But it ultimately comes back to Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce defining their purpose of, hey, I want to solve this problem for computers. I want to solve this problem for computing, period. And the funny part about that is Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce weren't even the first guys to come up with the idea of how to do it. I believe it was someone from Toshiba or there was another company that had the whole idea of what it was to build a microchip. Like they didn't create the chip. They just perfected it in a way that made it a universal solution for computers.
And that's what I mean by visionaries. It doesn't matter. And people get, especially when you're a smaller business, especially when you're a startup, people get caught up in the idea that somebody's already doing it. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You can take it and do it better,
right,
or make it more effective, make it more efficient, make it more anything, user friendly, whatever you can do with it, no matter the visionary, which
right,
is all important. But of course, we know where the light bulb came from, and didn't originate where everyone believes it did.
Right. Very
you know, and there's very few things that are original. You know, everything is a modification, and most everything, at least.
This is true. And then the interesting part to me is when someone dominates a market so much, so like Tesla. Some people are fans of Tesla, some people are not. But when it comes to a point where you have so many patents and you're so far advanced that you say, hey, I've got the patents, but here, go play around with it and work with it. It allows others to say, okay, let me start to understand and catch up. We were actually at a hackathon at eBay, and I might have shared that to you. I'll probably share the link later. But we were at a hackathon at eBay, and we were able to work with a Tesla to build an app that actually was able to control the car from a mobile phone. Actually, change that. It wasn't even from a mobile phone. It was actually able to impact the car, control the car from a wearable device. That doesn't exist yet. It was kind of a prototype we were working with. But someone can move their arm and, as a result, control the Tesla.
Sounds like it can already exist. It probably already does, especially in planes and military, but not, yeah. I guess to democratize that whole technology, right? And I think that is the new investment plane right now, which is basically technology and smart cars, if you will, right? Mm-hmm.
It's definitely it's a new time. I mean, I think drones. It was funny to me to see the first drone that I saw a few years ago, and now they're in Radio Shack and all the other places. But it really came back from somebody having the innovative idea to, hey, actually the first drone I saw went over the spaceship that Apple has out in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And the spaceship, for those, it's called a green spaceship. And it's basically this big green circle that Apple has in this building out there that is going to be sort of an ecosystem that it'll be all in one, and that's what they're continuing to build in Cupertino. And it's a very interesting platform, and they're building it to the point where it has so many solar panels that it doesn't use but hardly anything as a carbon footprint. And as a whole, they're continuing to be innovative in their process of even building the building, which is taking them so long. 9 times out of 10 today, you can get a building built really quickly. So if Apple's doing this, they're doing something that's amazing. So it'll be an interesting process.
I'm excited for the future. There's so many things that are happening, and we may not see it. And this is a time everyone, especially people who are interested in being entrepreneurs or interested in investments, this is the time where you can capitalize on everything that's new that's happening, because it's actually happening right now, even if you don't hear about it. But when you research it, you see, holy cow, and it's happening. It's all happening now. And I'm just so amazed.
I am too, to say the least. It is a great time to be alive. It's a great opportunity. And unlike any other time, and this is back to the whole startup thing that he was mentioning before, I think people can start startups today that they can be fragmented. I mean, we don't have to be in the same place at the same time and have a startup. Back in the day, you could be in a garage and you might have your friend or your co-founder that you're working with, you've known several years. But today, you might have a friend or a co-founder. Matter of fact, my co-founder, truth be told, for the company we started a few years ago, he's on the West Coast, and I go back and forth periodically, but he's stationed there. And we've been at this for some time, and we've known each other for years. But because we have a connection via Skype and some of the other platforms, we're able to just continue to build with a purpose-driven approach to solving problems.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, even just you and I. I mean, we're on both sides of the planet, and I talk to you more than I talk to.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, we're definitely. It's amazing what we can do today with technology and just a commitment to solving problems and helping people. And that's the purpose-driven approach.
Here's the thing that I kind of realized just recently, because I was reading an article, and there's a new startup company. It's college students, and yeah, you know what I'm talking about, what they're connecting. Yeah. So that, I think, is one of the biggest problems right now. And I think you notice that too. It's actually connecting people to the right people. And
it's a massive problem. I mean, I think that one of the things I saw, one of the actual companies that I saw yesterday was a startup that was it's a spinoff of that, but it's really talking about gyms. And it was a startup that was working with college students and getting them to get into fitness centers. And in getting them into fitness centers, it was really seeing what fitness centers had capacity and what didn't have capacity. Because a lot of times when you go to the gym, you don't want to just wait around in the gym and waste your time. So you want to be, okay, this is free. Let me go in there now and let me schedule my workout around that. So it was an interesting process of what they're doing and how they were doing it. They're working with Rutgers University. They're working with, I want to say it was Virginia Union, and a university that was on the West Coast. And it was very interesting how segmented they were. But their whole point was that they were solving the problem of, kids, people in schools wanting to work out, and how they actually can work with the colleges to solve that problem. So it was a very interesting solution. But they were also looking for other college students to help them solve this problem. They're trying to find businesses that say, hey, this is I'm a developer. I want to work with you. And they can't find all of what they're looking for on the campus. So they have to go out of the campus. They have to go out of their environment. And they want to stay within the college scope. So they're trying to get other college kids to be involved.
I mean, of course, I think, and see, that's where, I started off with this idea of helping people, college students, university students. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Um, University students, right? I was started off with this idea. University students, helping them gain exposure, understanding that there's greater access to the opportunities that are just stationary, rather than the opportunities that are just stationary.
Right.
Then I met you, and Saul the other day told me, he said, I think you're thinking too small, And I said, you know what? I probably am. So let's read that Magic of Thinking Big again. And
Right.
I met you, and I said, I've been thinking about this for a while, and this is an amazing opportunity. And then it just edifies that everyone is having, even, God, for Christ's sake, there's like a new app called, or website called Connectifier. People are so guarded that they're afraid they have to actually stalk someone and pull up all their information and get a little side note of what they're doing and who they are and what websites they are before they actually talk to them.
The funny part about that, and this is to me sort of, Silicon Valley operates the exact opposite way that the rest of society does. And that's part of why the ecosystem Silicon Valley continues to foster the growth that they do, and has for the last, since Intel really started the meritocracy that is Silicon Valley. It is because people will share an idea quicker with you in Silicon Valley than they will in any other place. And they're less worried about you stealing their idea, even though people steal ideas all the time. It's really like, okay, well, let's build this idea together. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oh, well, let's move on to something else. But they're constantly trying to come up with new ideas. Now, the flip side of it is most other places don't have as many engineers, designers, and developers as Silicon Valley does. But a lot of the people have the ideas. They're just looking for that talent. But that being said, a company or a person goes to Silicon Valley and like, okay, so what's so special about it? I mean, Jack Ma is an example. Went out to Silicon Valley and was like, okay, we're going to be the Silicon Valley of China, and we can compete with everything they did. Came out here and saw Silicon Valley. It's like, oh, okay, you know what? We need some of the people that are here. We need some of that stuff that's here, which allowed Yahoo and some other companies to invest in them to help them become what they are. But it still has a fostering unit that helps to grow that ecosystem that is just unparalleled.
But
it's all about sharing.
Wait, it's all about sharing, right?
Yes.
And I've noticed that it's happening, I guess the guardedness and the secrecy is happening a lot on the internet. Like in plain view, everyone's like, oh, this is a secret. I'm not going to share this idea because, I don't want someone to steal it. And I did a Periscope on that the other day, and I said, listen, you got to just give it away. You know what I mean? Because, what good are you by yourself? Honestly.
I think the most interesting thing to me is companies that go in stealth mode. And I think it's very interesting because 9 times out of 10 when they're in stealth mode, it's either A, they're trying to go public and there's a whole different there's a quiet period and not necessarily a stealth mode. It just means you can't talk about what you're actually doing. But stealth mode to me, if you're building in stealth mode, it's really that you haven't necessarily, you haven't necessarily defined your problem or your niche in a way that you're comfortable with. To say that you're 10x better than everybody else that's your competition. And until you have that 10x better than your competition, you're not really building towards a monopoly in your market or in your niche. And again, I think most startups need to have that monopoly of 10x of what they're doing versus their competitors in their niche. Or they're just they're in the red ocean versus the blue ocean. The red ocean, everybody's already making money. They're already competing. There's ability for you to compete in it too. But you're going to, in some cases, compete for price points versus this is my product, this is my service, this is my offering. And oh, by the way, you have to pay a premium for it. Or this is my product, this is my pricing, this is my service, and I'm going to give it away. But oh, by the way, if I'm giving it away to you, that means you're the actual customer, you're the asset, and I'm actually selling you.
Mm-hmm. I don't. The thing with the red and the blue, right? Mm-hmm. There's not necessarily anything one is better than the other. Is it how you do it? I know you have an opinion.
Yeah. I think it really depends on where a person is trying to start. Not everybody is going to come up with a blue ocean technology. Not everybody's going to come up with something that's going to be so innovative and so cutting edge that nobody else is doing it. The biggest challenge, though, even if you are in a red ocean, you should find a niche in it that is still a pain point that's not being solved in that red ocean. But it's almost like you need to still be working on the blue ocean concepts, because until you're really in a blue ocean situation, you're going to be vying for the same price points that everybody else is. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're trying to be the lowest cost. I mean, I think fast food is sort of the scenario of I could be the most innovative new fast food restaurant out there, but I'm still competing with McDonald's. I'm still competing with Checkers. I'm still competing with some of the industry juggernauts that are also struggling. The price of a McNugget has gone down tremendously, and it's bottom line because they're actually trying to, price gouge each other. And it's even funny to really think that the McNugget actually came from the Chinese food restaurants. I think they were doing orange chicken or something like that, and they went to the store, this small Chinese restaurant, and saw that they were doing a McNugget, or they were doing a chicken nugget, and they wanted to buy the Chinese restaurant. The Chinese restaurant wouldn't sell, and so then McDonald's went ahead and created the McNugget based on that same concept. And so one of the favorite, McNuggets people have is the sweet and sour sauce with McNugget, because that's where it comes back to.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at the whole concept, and this is less sophisticated, but you know that a 10-piece chicken nugget costs like $5.49 and a 20-piece costs $5.99. I said, are they joking? And that's how competitive the marketplace is, and it's less sophisticated, but it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, the margins for McDonald's, right? And who can compete with that? And by the way, I love Checkers. So, who can compete with that? And
I agree.
I'm laughing because I went through that situation. I don't eat at McDonald's, but I was hungry one day, and I said, oh, and the lady said, it's $5.49. I said, wait. Is it $5.99 for like double that? And she's like, yes. I'm like, I just don't understand. How can you do that? I mean, is this really food?
It is challenged, and I almost want to say it's not. I mean, yeah, we don't even want to get into what's in the McNugget, but
yeah.
We Play DC has actually said the perfect point. The internet's provided it.
Yeah. Everybody's. I gotta get my soup in mine now. Come on.
How was I not informed of this? But this is awesome, right? That you two hooked up, but
yeah.
Okay.
Really.
How long have you guys been planning this? Just out of curiosity.
It was just.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I don't feel offended now.
You're still invited.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Surprised to see you in a suit.
Anyway, we're in a noisy kind of restaurant / coffee shop, as you can probably hear. So sorry about that. But can you guys hear a lot of the background noise? When I step foot into this room, it was empty. 10 minutes later, or something. Almost like it doesn't. I kept it's a restaurant that has a cafe side to it, so it's pretty cool. Oh, you know what? I can send you the link to their restaurant, but it's pretty exclusive and stuff. And I'm just dressed up for not for this, but for something else later on today.
So hence the suit at
yeah, 7:30, 8 or so. Yeah. I mean, because if I go back to the home, then it's just going to be nothing but problems. Little man asking for stuff. Anyway, how late were you up then, Monty?
I was up probably until maybe. So it was really 9.
I can hear him now. What happened? He did too on my end.
Yeah, so it might be some of the Wi-Fi's sometimes.
But I gotta get going because it's almost 1 a.m.
I agree. I definitely want to go, but I appreciate this, and we'll do it again or circle back tomorrow and make this happen.
Okay.
Interview some people and make some good stuff happen.
But let's talk to Daryl first before he goes.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. If he comes back in, I see he's in the room. I don't see him jumping in the seat.
He's probably having Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah, that happens periodically.
No, you didn't. You didn't jack anything.
Oh no, yeah. come back in. I mean, we're about to shut it off, but we wanted to talk to you anyway.
See, this would be a good combination. See, Monty, like I was telling you, that she would be a good person. Yeah.
We talked about that. We talked about that also, and I was like, hey, that'd be awesome for the Saturday situation.
Okay. All right. Just saying. And she'd be a good addition to the mastermind. But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the core outside of the Blab.
Yeah. Anyway, what have you guys been talking about for the last?
Well, we've been talking about a few elements of what startups are, how startups go, and how to build startups. And the whole point was, we're going to start talking about startups and what they deal with as a business, and how people don't necessarily understand and define startups properly. So the myths and the truths about startups.
Daryl froze again. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we'll talk to him later, and I will talk to you later too.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.